Thanksgiving and the Eternal Weekend Prague EU recap.
Next on Eternal Durdles. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters out there. Thank you to the Durdle Maniacs. If you want to be a Durdle Maniac, go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles and help support the channel. It keeps things going. It keeps things updated. Thanks so much for watching. On with the show. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Bleckman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Zach, when you think of Thanksgiving, are you just like, man, why am I on the show with this clown?
Actually, no, Phil. In fact, I wanted to do a list of, people we need to thank. Of course, we're going to have a ton of people to thank this year, but I wanted to thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me this year.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for hanging out with me, hanging out with you.
No, seriously though, it's been a year. It hasn't been an easy year, and it's been great having somebody there, to soundboard off of and stuff, and to listen to my gripes about trying to get a job and all that stuff. And it's just been good to have you on board with me the whole time.
And you got a job, which is great success. And, we hit our milestone that we had set out to at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
In terms of the channel. So we're not the biggest legacy channel. We're not going to ever be the biggest legacy channel, but we set a milestone. We nailed that milestone and then some. We still got a month to go before the end of the year. We're cruising. We're jamming. Yeah.
I guess the next thanks to all the new subscribers. Everybody that subscribed over the last year. That is over 800 subscribers, that subscribed in the last year. So I think we started off in the low 300s this year. So almost over 1,000 subscribers. So
I also want to thank all of the commenters who dunked on us, because nothing brings me more joy than people dunking on me, because I love to dunk on me. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I get such joy out of people taking time to be like, I don't know about these guys. They're kind of idiots. And I'm like, I love these guys.
I think still my all-time favorite comment is somebody just being like, I didn't know that Zach was that old.
Oh, yeah. The ones
I have the voice of a child, apparently.
Dude, I love the ones where it's like, I thought Zach was some weird old dude, and I thought Phil was bald and super fat, and this is not what I was expecting at all. And I love those comments. They're so good.
Finished Legacy podcast somehow.
Just love it. Love it so much. We need more of that. We need more just cold, hard, honest, earnest truths from the commenters.
If you want to dunk on us, now's the time. Comment below.
Yeah, now's the moment. Let us know for real, because I love it. That's my favorite thing to do whenever I'm on gameplay videos. If anybody's ever how could Phil's such an idiot? Why would he ever do this? I'm like, I know, I hate that guy so much. What a jerk. Love it.
So beyond thanking the people watching, the people that have started watching, we should thank Harry and John of Moxfield, our sponsor. We've sung the praises of Moxfield a million times, but those guys, again, like I said, it was a really hard year for me, and those dudes really stepped up and really helped me out with finances. Making sure that I could go to these big events and stuff like that, and they're going to make sure that I'm going to Chicago still. So, that's really cool, too. But, if you don't know, Moxfield is the greatest deck building website on the internet. If you're not using it, you should be. Redacted website is just way worse, and you should always be using Moxfield. Moxfield has all the functionalities and more that you could need from a deck building website.
Yeah, it would be weird for anybody to use redacted website. Zach, of all of your deck lists that are out there, what is your most viewed Moxfield deck list?
Oh, man, I have to check. But I think it's an EDH deck list. Do you know off the top of your head?
Which one yours is?
Yeah, just are you asking me this because you know the answer?
I'm pretty sure yours is the Grand Calcutron EDH deck.
Oh, yeah? Is it? Let's find out.
I hope so. I hope it's the Grand Calcutron EDH.
Let's find out right now. I wish I had a quick, I think if I could guess, I guess... It looks like it's actually an old school deck. It's old school Sly, or it could be a pre-modern deck as well. I have a lot of pre-modern decks, so there's a good chance that it's a pre-modern deck. Those got a lot of traction when I first started using the site, and that was right as pre-modern became a thing. So yeah, that's a great question. I don't actually know what my most viewed one is.
Yeah, shout out to Premodern and the banning of land tax crushing my dreams. Shout out to that.
I want to thank the
Shout out to the ban hammer on that one. No,
Yep.
Premodern's great. If you haven't tried Premodern, that's a New Year's resolution you should get into. Premodern's a
Yeah,
fun format.
you know, Phil, it looks like some of our budget deck lists actually from our budget episode that we generally do at the beginning of the year, and we will be doing a new budget deck list episode at the beginning of next year. Some of our budget deck lists are in the like 600-700 area, so that's my biggest one. I know your biggest deck list is obviously your ever changing updated Miracles deck list. And what is that at now? It's like 7,000 or something?
Is that because it's my only deck list on moxfield? Because I spend none of my mental power on anything else. I am at just over 11,400 views on my Miracles deck list.
That's
pretty
amazing.
Pretty good for an archetype that isn't competitively viable, huh?
Yeah, no, people love to just see what you're up to with that deck.
People just want to see what's losing, yeah.
I mean, whenever you do good, people want to know, and whenever you do bad, people want to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's an episode title right there.
Yeah. We're high when he's up. We're low when he's down.
Yeah, I get that everybody's forgotten about it, but I do want to give a shout out and a yearly Thanksgiving thanks to Jace the Mind Sculptor. We wouldn't be here without him. So.
You know, with that said, someone I didn't have on the list, but I mean, it just popped into my brain just now. Chris Bonucci, honestly, we owe a lot to him as far as viewership and whatnot. And he's out there doing the like fighting the good fight for Legacy. And he's a guy that we haven't had on the cast yet that we really should get on the cast soon.
The community as a whole should be thanking Bonucci for 90s MTG because what a mainstay that channel has become.
Yeah,
for tabletop Legacy, right? Most Legacy channels that have a consistent and constant presence are moto gameplay because that's just the easier thing to translate over screen. But he has found the way to make tabletop work and accessible, and you can't sing his praises enough.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch.
It's fun to watch.
So from there, I guess we should shout out our community. Specifically, we'll start with our Patreon followers, the Durdle Maniacs. Thanks for supporting the show. You guys keep the lights on. You keep us being able to update the channel. I'm sure you've seen over the last year we've gotten much better at creating video content. We've learned a lot over the last year, and a lot of that is thanks to the financial support that you guys give. If you happen to be in a position where you think that is something you want to support, we would love the support. You can go to patreon.com/Eternal Durdles for that. And then we also just want to thank our community as a whole. We've got a really vibrant Discord community that, is super supportive, really fun to hang out with, and just overall, just great folks.
Zach, what was our first ever video? What date was our first?
Our first video.
When we moved
from... quiz me.
Where we moved solely from audio into video. Because that is the trajectory of what our subscribers have done to help, or our supporters have gotten us over to. Because we haven't been really doing video for all that long.
No, a little over a year, I want to say. Maybe March of 2 years ago is probably when our first one came. And I'm looking that up right now.
Given that we're the longest, of all the Legacy podcasts that remain, we're now the most tenured one, but we've only done video for over a year. That's pretty good motion for, to actually display where the support has gone, Those moves were not small moves. They were pretty big moves.
Our first video episode
on our cameras, it's pretty good.
Our first video episode was Eternal Durdles episode 196. We don't even number our episodes anymore. It was called Portable Hole and Muppet Nate. I think this is so specifically, that was a D&D set. Portable Hole was a card that came out. But I think we were talking about how we should only bring Nate on as a marionette, like a Muppet, to whenever he comes on the show as an extra. Or I think Nate had just stopped being a regular on the podcast, like a host, and we were saying we should just get like a Muppet version of him to chime in and like rant occasionally.
That's great. And speaking of where future Patreon funds are going to go, you can help fund the Nate puppet that we're going to get. So that'll be great. We'll get a third host back. It'll be a Nate puppet.
Obviously, we should thank Nate. Nate is
the OG.
Nate is here in the background. You don't see him, but Nate, Phil, and I are constantly texting back and forth about show ideas and what's going on each week. And even though you don't see Nate is here in spirit at all times.
Yeah, well, what was the most recent card that I was like, yo, tell me that this is bad? Was it like In Too Deep or something? I don't know, some random
like that, yeah.
Some random commander card, and I was like, is this the solution to Fairy Time Raveler? Is this it? And then, the one thing that is great is that you guys, I mean, even if you know that something is bad and it's not good, you first go down the earnest lane with me of like, well, let's explore this obviously incorrect thing first.
So what happens if this happens?
Yeah, let's take a good hard look if this trash is maybe the treasure, and then it never is. But what a delight those combos are. So yeah, shout out to the OG, Nicolia.
I've got a couple other personal things. One, I have to thank Strass Daddy, Mark Strassman, for really helping me out with the job stuff. Dude, Mark sat down for basically 2 days with me. Took off of work and just sat down for 2 days and like ran my resume through the ringer, helped me out with recruiters, and like honestly, that was the difference. That's what got me to the point where I could get this job. So, without that, I would be in some dire straits right now because I ran out of savings, and I would have had to start digging into some more emergency funds. At the beginning of this month, and luckily I got to a point where, and now I'm at a point where that's not an issue. But the dude just like came, popped up and was like, "Look, let's solve this problem for you. Like, I know that it can be done." He had a lot of positive things to say about me, which was great because especially when you're in that state, you don't have a lot of positive things to say about yourself when you're in your going on 6 months and like you haven't gotten a single like interview. The landscape of finding a job right now is truly terrible. But like I was definitely in a position where I needed help from somebody, and he came along and really just made me realize, one, I could get a job, and two, he helped me focus on the skills that I have to get that job, which was really great. And I honestly can't thank him enough for that.
Dude, Guided Passage is not playable in Legacy, but it sure is playable in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Strass Daddy.
Yeah, man. I want to thank my nerd email group. That's a list of guys who don't necessarily play Magic, but are interested in all things nerd. Again, they very much like Strass Daddy hooked me up with. They helped me out with my resume, and they just spent everyone spent a little bit of time with me, just sharpening the rough edges out of my job search, and it obviously it paid off. It made a huge difference. So when I started getting those interviews, I came out. I started realizing that I could do this and get a real big boy job, and it's hard to articulate how thankful I am for that stuff, because it's just. Short of breaking down and crying, there's not a lot I can do. So I want to thank all the guys in the nerd email group a lot for that.
I mean, it is pretty good to take some time to remember how good the Legacy community is to each other at a baseline at the end of the day. No matter how much we argue about what should be banned and what shouldn't, and what trash we all hate and whatever, like. Everybody at the end of the day is there for each other, and that's a nice, reliable thing to remember. I know that like you just got this gig that you were working hard for, and you got some help from the community. Several of the jobs that I've gotten in my actual professional career have been from connections through Magic. Like Magic has gotten me in the door for like more opportunities than my actual university diploma ever has.
Yeah.
just like actual factual, like I've gotten more gigs from just like having played Legacy and play this game than I have from going to getting a BFA, like,
You even
which
worked
is
with me for like a hot minute as a get
yeah.
by.
There was an interim period where I was like, yo, I'm like looking for work, I got nothing, I need something, and you were like, come work at the game shop with me, like,
Yeah.
we got some openings in the interim, and I was like, great, and did that for a little bit, and then like I landed the job where I've been at ever since. So like, but yeah, it's like everybody's looking out for each other, and Strass getting this nod here, like for being the personification of like what's good in the community, and that's awesome. You want to know the thing that I want to tout, which is, even though we are giving thanks and being appreciative in the opening portion of this episode, one thing that I learned recently, and so I'm a non-practicing Jew, right? If somebody were to ask, Phil, are you Jewish? Yes, I'm Jewish, but I'm the least religious guy ever. I have I have no interest in religion at all, but I still say that I'm Jewish. And I learned recently at a Jewish burial that there's something like, have you ever heard of what a mitzvah is?
Yes, a mitzvah is like
a
great favor that you do to somebody, but expect not in return. Am I
expect
close
nothing
to that?
in return, right?
Yeah.
Expect nothing in return. And I learned something recently, and you've reminded me of it. I was at a burial, and at a Jewish burial, what is part of the ritual is that the family will actually bury the casket until the dirt covers the casket's visibility. So you don't have to like fill the whole grave, but you dig enough just to cover the whole casket. And it's called the final mitzvah, and it's the only mitzvah that you can guarantee 100% that you will not be thanked for it, because the person isn't there to thank you for it, right?
Makes sense.
But I learned that recently, and even though I've been I've been Jewish my whole life, right? But I've never been religious, so I didn't learn like that sort of side of things. But that has like resonated with me like very deeply in ways where I'm like, I like hope that I'm doing things to help others where I'm not expecting anything in return, and to like hear all the stories, of something like Strass, where it's just like, yeah, taking time off, gonna help you out, expecting absolute zero in return, and it's like, if nothing fills you with just the pure joy that like we have a community that looks out for each other at all times. Even it's like a lot of the people that we've had on the cast that have helped out the podcast or done a video with us, like they just came on and did it. That was just the time that they came to do it, and all the help that they've given us, and whatever. That's like they just do it. That's on their own,
Yeah.
And I just want to shout out to that part of it, where it's like everybody helps each other out with no expectation of anything in return. And I hope that we get to do the same for other content creators or for our friends in the community as well. But that's like, I think that's the title of this episode is, the Legacy Mitzvah.
The Legacy Mitzvah. Yeah, I like that. You know where I found out about mitzvahs, Phil?
Where'd you find out?
The movie Rounders.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
There's a scene in that movie where I think his Matt Damon's professor gives him like the money to like compete in the like final tournament against what's it called, John Malkovich.
KGB.
Yeah. And he's like, I consider this a mitzvah, and I was just like, what? So I had to I had to find out. But so a couple other like we might as well show the list right now. We have had so many people this year come onto the cast. I think last year we might have done 40 episodes, right? This year, I want to say we've done close to 200 episodes. Like, maybe not even episodes, but like at least videos. And then, I'm not even counting the shorts, which I think I did like 200 in like 3 months or something like that. But, full videos. We've had so many guests on. And, I could sit here and rattle off every single person's name. But honestly, like, just here's a list of everybody, and just the time and the generosity that everyone's shown, the generosity of their time, I should say, that everyone's shown to us, helping us out with the show, offering us some feedback as far as how they do things. And one of those things, again, with the concept of the Legacy Mitzvah, right, is like, everyone sort of believes that a high tide lifts all boats, and I think that's a great way to look at how this community is taking care of us. We're out here trying to lift the tide, but everybody else is out there too doing the same thing, and it's a real feel good.
Yeah, and for everybody that has come on the show, most of the time, the stuff that people have come on to do is mostly evergreen. So if there's anything of like most people came on and talked about their expertise, or they talked about how they learned to play the format, or how they learned to innovate in the format and things like that. And most of the episodes that people have come on to do with us are, sort of live in a time capsule. Like, you could listen to them at any point and they would remain relevant. So
Yeah.
if there's anybody on our list of guests that we've had in the past year that you're like, oh, I love this person, I missed that episode, like, feel free to jump back and check it out, because it's usually, or I mean, barring like a couple of new things, like maybe it was like during a set review time or like anything, something like that. But beyond that, everything is like pretty fresh in terms of like what the content that we talk about with them is. Most of it is like deck techs and like specialties, and then like some of it is tournament reviews of like, success in tournaments, but like within that they talk about how they're successful in tournaments, which is very evergreen. Particularly with our own EW coming up in North America. So if there's anybody on here that you didn't get a chance to see their episode, it's very easy to just hop back and check them out, and it'll still be relevant.
Yeah, for sure. And I make sure to make sure that it's very searchable, so you can definitely find it. If you type their name in, you'll find it for sure. Then a couple special mentions. One, I want to give a big shout out to somebody that really helped me out this year. Joe Cherries, formerly of Nitpicking Nerds, then of the Joe Cherries channel, the Cherries channel. Really helped me out this year with a lot of a ton of advice. They gave us a donation basically to get us out to Vegas, that paid for our hotel in Vegas, which was huge. I would not have been able to go to Vegas if that wasn't the case, which was a giant opportunity for us. And I'd like to say that we did not squander that opportunity. Phil and I really made the most of that opportunity.
When we made the most of it, like, if the most of it comes back around, we'll have some pretty sweet news on the back end.
That's still in the works,
of what the result of that was. So yeah, we definitely leverage that to the best of our ability.
Yeah. To that end, I also want to thank Diane D'Amico, the community manager at Wizards, the content creator manager at Wizards of the Coast, who just has been nothing but awesome to us. Especially, we're so little as far as other content creators go. I'm sure you're well aware, if you're watching this channel, that EDH and Standard and Modern, all those other formats get so much love just from their communities as a whole. There's a lot larger of a community, and oftentimes the Eternal formats get sort of left in the dust. And I want to say Diana did not leave us in the dust. She really she was really out there looking out for us, and a lot of that will come to light for us shortly in the future. But that she was awesome helping us out with a lot of that stuff, and just giving us the chance to get those opportunities. So I have to say I really appreciate her help there.
I second everything. She was really wonderful when we were in Vegas. She helped connect the dots for us after Vegas. Having met her at that event for the first time. I mean, you had communicated with a little bit beforehand, but it was as though, we had known each other for decades. It was right from the jump. So yeah, she was excellent the whole way through.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it. We appreciate all of it.
And then a final salute. I want to thank Shelly from the D&D team, who also was there during my employment time, where I was trying to look for work. She did a great job of just helping me look at my resume and determine, what opportunities exist for me at Wizards of the Coast. I did not end up at a job at Wizards of the Coast, but she gave me a really good idea of what my skill set was and how to leverage that. And that, eventually, obviously, now that I'm getting work again, it's just good to know that I have that as a back, and she's been a great resource. And she came to me from the Nerd Crew email. I want to specifically thank Joe Moscone for that. Really, just, like I said, it's been a year, And I do have a lot of people to thank because so much has sort of worked out for me. So I wanted to make sure that we get that going off in the right direction. I know, Phil, you probably have some people that you want to thank as well.
Yeah, I am pretty much thankful for I want to thank the people who like listen to the podcast like consistently, because I feel like there was a good portion of the year where I was really down on the format. Like I was down on the format enough to where I was like, I'm ready to take a break. And the people who listen consistently, that engage with me consistently, that like, you help keep my head on straight, and I get that it's community as a whole again, but like that, it does matter. Like, even though you are only a listener in your own mind, potentially, like the feedback and being part of it matters a lot, because I think that we all aspire to want, like we talked a lot about when we were trying to work on what would a tournament series that we did look like when we were just batting ideas around.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we were talking about revolved around, like, we need an event, even if the EV isn't high. The EV really, at the end of the day, is just the respect of your peers within the community, So like, even if the payout for a major event isn't huge, knowing that like the community cares about this event, and therefore if you win that event, they care that you won it, and like that is something that has resonated. I mean, we're about to talk about EU, right? Or EW, and EW. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever you can flip the painting for, right? That's the EV of the thing.
Yeah.
But like that's not a lot, I mean, I get that it's bigger than most legacy tournaments, but like, it's whatever somebody's willing to buy the oversized card at, but like the oversized card also has like,
and also, do you want to sell your trophy?
Yeah. Like, it's like, there's only so much, like, you get the card for top aiding, but then it's like, okay, how much is the card worth? Do you want to flip the card? Like, that's pretty much it, right? Like, that's what that is. Like, the EV isn't crazy,
Yeah.
Or like what you would expect. It's not like a big, I guess it's not what you would expect, but I think that like, but because everybody cares about it, everybody's like working towards it, and but like that as a whole, I think I've recognized is that like, even though I feel like our listener base is small by comparison to all of like the other formats that you mentioned and everything, but it's the fact that people care, and I care because people care.
Yeah. It's also like the one time a year all of Magic cares, like everybody cares during Eternal Weekend.
I'm just saying, like, in like zooming out, like when I was like, I'm really getting tired of this game, I think I need to take a break. I was really I was like very narrow in my mindset of like what was upsetting me, why I didn't like to play anymore, like why I wasn't getting any enjoyment out of it. And but the fact that like I was like, okay, well, we're gonna record this podcast. People are, they're expecting an episode. Like we've committed to doing these episodes, and I was, that like pulled me to zoom back out to be like, oh, wait a minute, no, like I don't want to say that it was like therapeutic, but it was helpful, and in ways where I hope that like, even though we may not have a relationship directly with everybody that listens to the podcast, like I hope that the sense that there's some amount of reliability in hearing our voices talk about how Entreat the Angels is still the best card in the game, helps people in the way that they helped you in your like major life transitions here this year, and then it's the same with me, like maybe not as like clear cut and dry as like I didn't have a job and now I have a job, but very much so in terms of like, yeah, I just needed to like get out of my own head, and everybody helped with that. And whether like I didn't even ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, people didn't even know that they were doing it, right? But like I think I don't think I'm unique in that regard.
Yeah.
I think that like having a sense of like knowing that like you can go and play your legacy locals or whatever, and it's like a safe place for you to go and like hang out with people who have a shared interest, who have your best interest at heart, and have your back. Like I think that's I'll tell another story. There was a recent conversation that I had with a group of legacy players, and one was talking about how there was this negative interaction that they had over the table, and one player got really upset at the other player, and there was like heated words back and forth, and the person was like, is this person like always like this? Like they're coming at me really hot, like for no reason, and I felt like really turned off by that. Like, what was going on there? Like, does anybody know? Because like I didn't have a relationship. And my first instinct from, having been in the community, I was like, I think that whatever charged them to like get upset, if anything, the fact that they were comfortable enough to get upset in the environment that of like the local legacy scene, knowing that like when they come back around and cool off, that like they won't be, like written off as like that person, right? Like they got their head back onto them, they came back around, they made amends, and then it's just like, yeah, everybody goes through it sometimes, but like that's what everybody's here for, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's a card game, but like even beyond that, it's like even when you got some tough times, it's like, yeah, we get it, man. Like sometimes people go through rough patches, and they still have like the place that they need to go to like know that they have a place.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has a place, and that's important.
Yeah.
And it's maybe not discussed often, because why would it be? But like that matters, And it's like it's unspoken, but it matters. And it's in those spots where it's like, that was an indicative of an example of like, we happen to do it because we have a platform here, but it extends beyond that too, to the community at large. And so I'm thankful for the community consistently showing up like that.
Yeah.
For everyone, whether they're a name or not in the legacy scene.
Right on. I think also, we should probably both give a huge shout out to our wives and sweethearts here, who put up with us taking literal hours out of the week to do this podcast when
I get all the time. Whenever the headphones go on, it's always like, okay, you're gonna talk way too loud for the next 2 hours, aren't you? So yeah, sure am.
Pretty much what happens here too. Yeah,
spot on, nailed it.
But yeah, I think to that end, I think it's great that our significant others are also down to hang out with each other too.
Yeah, that works. Right?
I'm looking forward to that again. That was a good time.
Dude, Mighty Bread all day.
Mighty Bread. I'm thankful for Mighty Bread.
Thankful for good sandwiches.
Heck yeah. So that's I'm sure I'm missing a ton here.
Of course. We're never going to be able to like encapsulate all of that in 20 minutes.
But so let's transition from Thanksgiving, and now we're right now it's Black Friday for you and me. I have a lot of traditions. I want to go over a couple of them really fast for Black Friday. Ever since I can remember, as far back as I can remember, a child of divorce here, my dad had made Black Friday a day where we hung out as a family because he had work, like he's a single dad. So he had to make sure that, he got in any family time he could with me and my sister. And one of the things we do every year, that I still do every year, is we put up the tree on Black Friday. We get, personally for me and my wife, we go out, we pick a tree, a live one, and we put up the tree. It's not decorated yet. You just put it up. You just go out and put it up. For my dad, it was the pipe cleaner tree. We had to organize this crazy like pipe cleaner tree and get it all together. But that is a tradition that I follow every year on Black Friday. I make sure that I do that. Do you have any Black Friday traditions?
Yeah, I debate whether or not I'm going to play 2 or 3 and treat the angels at the next major event.
Every year on this day.
Yeah. At one point, I'll just go off the deep end and I'll register the full set.
The full set.
I luckily haven't gotten there yet. I'm sure whatever that looks like, it's a way different list than anything I've created so far.
Did you ever play and treat the angels in Standard when it was legal?
I don't think I played Standard, to be honest, at the time, but I'm sure that like I was. I mean, maybe I did. I
did. I played, like, I had a blue, white, red control deck, and that was one of my finishers. But I played the full set. And you know what's worse than worse, Phil? Is drawing 3 of those in your opener in a no brainstorm format.
Yeah, you got to play brainstorm.
Absolutely terrible.
I don't know what to tell you. That sounds like it's on you.
It was pretty bad. There was a lot of times, that was just like, this is the worst possible scenario.
You know what it is? I'll tell you, the new tradition will probably be, as everybody is upset with how modern looks, or the fact that like grief is everywhere and it's not fun and blah 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 blah, and I'm tangentially in tune with whatever that is the goings on in modern. That Jace the Mind Sculptor needs a new home, so maybe the new ritual or the new tradition is going to be trying to find the way to play for Jason modern as a way to play and treat.
There you go.
Halimar Depths needs some love.
Yeah.
So.
My other big tradition is to watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 telethon that they do every year. They do just 24 hours. It's actually like going on until Monday, I think, right now, because they're trying to fund a new season of MST3K. That's Mystery Science Theater 3000 for the uninitiated. But one episode that I watch every year over the weekend it's called Santa Claus, and it's just it's a Mexican film production of what the people in that studio thought that every child from around the world thought Christmas, like how they celebrated Christmas, and it is comedy gold. It's honestly one of the best MST3Ks. If you get a chance, I think you can just go onto YouTube and find it.
Probably.
And I'm sure it's probably like on Netflix or something like that too. Or you can go to the MST3K thing and pitch in to have them do another season. I think they give you the full back catalog. I have it. I have the full back catalog through the MST3K app. But anyhow, I think it's like season 4, episode 15 or something. Santa Claus. If you want to really get in the mood this year, that's a great way to get into the seasonal mood. And I guess with that, we should talk about Eternal Weekend EU Prague, huh?
Did you have the top 8 locked? Did you
Did
call
I have Rug
8?
Delver and then Rug Cascade as a thing?
Did you have? I mean, hey, you're the Canadian threshold guy. Like you're the Rug Delver guy, and now you get it back, man. It's here. You weren't sure, dude. You weren't sure.
I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't like this version of Rug. To me, is just blue red Delver with a card that has a green pip that you probably never play.
Dude, it sure does. It sure is exactly that, but it's got 2 portent in it. It's not all bad.
It does have 2 portent. I saw that and I was like, wow, 2 portent. Yeah, it's an inch. Look, I would say it's an interesting looking deck, but it is blue red Delver with what's it called? They banned Expressive Iteration, but they threw they threw Expressive Druid into the spot. Seek the Beast is the card I'm thinking of, but that's just another version of Expressive Iteration, right? Like, so now the same problem that was happening before, where blue red Delver has access to 2 mana to draw 2s, still exists, and it's good. I don't know what else more there is to say about that.
Not only is it the only green colored pip is on the 3 questing druids, but there's only 1 tropical island in the list.
Just one.
So if at any point that trop gets wasted, you are casting 0 questing druids that game,
and you're probably fine with that. Honestly,
probably fine with that. You're just trying to seek the beast.
Yeah. That's all. It's like if your opponent thinks that they got you, like there's not even any sideboard cards that are green. They didn't even they didn't even do the dirty thing and like throw in like, oh, let's put in a miser's engineered explosives to capitalize off of all these 3-drops that are going around. Yeah, no, nothing like that.
You got meltdowns. You don't need ancient grudges.
Yeah.
You got surgical extraction. You don't need any of the green graveyard hate. You got what else you need? You got blood moons. You don't need. Who cares? Who cares for the green cards?
It's playing blood moon is like the rudest thing ever to me. The fact that they're playing 1 island, so you can fetch the island, and you're like, whatever. I've got the 1 island I need, and now I'll just play with these mountains.
Well, once you have the island, the only thing that then can't be cast is Murktide Regent, and I imagine in matchups where you want blood moon, Murktide Regent's too slow anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, outside of maybe 4 color,
it also won't matter because if you bring in Blood Moon, you're hosing somebody out of the game, right? Like, okay, fine, I guess my Murktide Regent can't be played, but I'll just draw something else that can be later,
I mean, I get everybody's calling it Rug Delver. It's called Canadian Druid on MTG Top 8, but you're right. It is. It's
blue red Delver. Blue red Delver a year ago, literally.
Expressiveless Delver, yeah. So that begs the question then, Zach. Could Expressive come off the ban list?
I think if anything, throw the questing druid on the ban list, man. Like
Oh
I'm sick of these
wow,
draw twos.
wow!
I'm sick
You're
of
the
these
only
2-mana draw twos.
person.
I am the only person. I don't
You're
think
the only
we're
person.
at that point yet. I don't think like Rug Tover winning one event is a reason to be like, oh yeah, this card should be banned. But I think stop making 2-mana draw twos. You know, like if it, we've proven that they're good. You know, like somebody needs to stop doing that. You know,
Bro, I
you're
don't know.
not
I
fooling
mean,
anyone by tacking a creature onto the other end of a 2-mana draw two. You know, like
dude, do you know who in the world cast the most number of predicts in 2023?
was it you?
It was me, and
Yeah.
I promise you, 2-mana draw twos are not quite what you're making them out to be.
Uh,
Questing Seek the Beast here is a
does that have
two
anything to
mana
do with the
draw
deck you're
3.
playing, Phil?
So questing Druid is I would argue a 2-mana draw 3 because not only do you draw the 2 cards, but you also draw a questing Druid.
It's true. You're
So
not wrong.
maybe they should stop making 2-mana draw 3s.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe that's it.
Yep.
Or give me Predict that draws 3.
So let's talk about the other decks here. We've got Teamer Cascade, which I'm surprised did as well as it did. Honestly, I just I every time I play against this deck, I'm just like, okay, so like, did you just counter the Crashing Footfalls and move on with your life? Because 2 4/4s is not that great.
I have a hot take. You want to know why a deck like this does good? Because nobody respects it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume, but like you don't have to respect it much to have it lose to Daze. You know, like.
Right. Well, that also like yes, this is the type of deck that like your win percentage on the play is probably exorbitantly higher than your win percentage on the draw. I mean, every deck is going to be like that, but more so for this deck that's just trying to put 10 power onto play for 3 mana. Like the sooner you get to 3 mana, the sooner the game ends.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think that if you went into an event like this and showed no respect to this deck, you also didn't know what they play, right? So like you may have walked into the Mystical Disputes being like, oh shit, like I was not thinking about Mystical Dispute at all. Whereas like if you go up against 8-cast, if they play Metallic Rebuke, if you're thinking, oh, right now their position is representative of a Metallic Rebuke, maybe I should consider that before I take a line. Whereas like if you don't have any reps against Crashing Footfalls, like because why would you, before this event, before it was, okay, it's a ported modern deck, but I don't think anybody took it seriously as a top table contender.
No.
And so if nobody was really iterating on it in any meaningful way, but like, it's just 8 Spirit Guide get you, right? Like it's called Crashing Footfalls, but really it's 8 Spirit Guide get you.
8 Guide. Yeah.
8 Guide. Yeah, that's 8 Guide. Let's call it 8 Guide. I mean, this one, the one that came in the top 8 was only playing 7 Guide. So I guess it really is taking after the 8-cast mantra of playing less than 8 casts.
Yeah. Then we have Cradle Control. Cradle Control is basically just a
Cradle Control
Fiend
is
Artisan Elves, right? Like, it's Fiend Artisan Elves.
It's Fiend Artisan mid-range.
Yeah.
So, like, the only elves in it are exactly Elvish Reclaimer and 1 Allosaurus Shepherd. Those are the elves. That's it. And like, and a Quirion Ranger, because, getting to untap your
Elvish Spirit Guide is an elf.
Bro, have you considered one thing that I haven't seen that I did while I was watching Prague, while I was watching the coverage? One thing that I did notice that we never talked about with Legolas's quick reflexes. Now, before this episode came out, I do doom scroll Twitter quite a bit, and I saw that there was some, hey, maybe quick reflexes isn't the piece de resistance everybody was talking about that it was beforehand. It's like it does cost the mana. There is some positional setup to it. Like it's not just gravy all the time, even though it's obviously a good card.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was watching coverage, one of the sickest lines that I saw with Legolas's quick reflexes was in old school classic elves, like actual natural order glimpse of nature elves, where they were doing like their untapped shenanigans with Quirion Ranger and Wirewood Symbiote on a Legolas's quick reflexed creature to like gun down a board.
Okay.
Because it's every time the creature gets tapped, it deals the damage to an opposing creature.
Yeah, it's just a completely separate like trigger that happens. It's not an ability.
So if you untap and tap, so the line that I saw was somebody Legolas quick reflexed their Dryad Arbor, and then went on a spree of like untapping it with all of the other effects, and then just tapping it for mana and like gunning down an opposing creature. And I was like, yo, that's hot.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Well, that's like
I'm not sleeving up Brainstorm, Zach, but that was hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like doing it with Night of the Reliquary. Like you're just like, woo, this is gross.
Right, but like, I don't think we really looked too deep into the what
just
do
gun
tap
down a
on tap
board.
effects look like to turn your 1 mana, uncounterable spell into a Plague Wind.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Which is pretty hot. I mean,
Yeah.
particularly if you're like, all right, maybe this Orcish Bowmasters is the bane of my existence if I'm a Glimpse of Nature player. Actually, never mind. Legolas's quick reflexes, tap the shit for mana, gun your shit down, draw 12. Like,
Yeah.
that's hot. That's really cool.
Yep.
Maybe there's more to that than we realized. And all of the old, Glimpse of Nature, Natural Order Elves players don't have to throw away their collections. Maybe they just need to push some dollars into some quick reflexes.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, dude.
Other decks are Scam. Man, I am over this deck. If there is a call for, and it won't happen, but if there's a call for a ban anytime soon, I'm just over seeing people cast Grief and then reanimating Grief. It's not fun.
You can get Grief. Let me get to Fairy Time Raveler. Get that shit off. Get that shit on the ban list. Get it out of here.
Look, I mean, would I play it? Sure, but like I know that it's absolutely obnoxious. I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of Thoughtseize effects to begin with, and at least Thoughtseize is a one-off, But Thoughtseize effects to begin with, I'm not in love with because there's not a lot of skill there. You're basically getting like a card plus because you're seeing their whole hand worth of value. The 2 damage doesn't generally mean anything. In some decks, it's good that you're taking the damage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you rip apart someone's entire hand and there's no good, and don't talk to me about Leyline of Sanctity, get out of here. But there's no good sideboard card. There's not like they need a Luxon Smiter that's like, if this card's in your hand and your opponent makes you discard a card, they have to choose this card. Like something like that would just be like, yeah, well, you have to think twice about being this deck now, right?
I mean that card does exist and it sucks, Zach. It's not like that card is called Veil of Summer, and yeah, that card doesn't make the format better.
I'm saying that so Veil of Summer is different. Veil of Summer, you have to have mana up. You have to decide when you want to play it. Look at Luxon Smiter and just imagine if Luxon Smiter said like, if your thought seized, your opponent has to choose this, even if it's a duress, right? Like this happens even if it can't normally be picked, right? Like
so you want the hand trapped. I
want Psychic Purge mana that's playable in Legacy. And I don't think that Guerrilla Tactics isn't good, Luxon Smiter isn't good, Psychic Purge also not good. These are cards that were meant classically to stop this from being a dominant strategy, and it's as little fun to me as land destruction is. Hand disruption is the antithesis of fun as far as I'm concerned in Magic. And if what Wizards cares about that stuff, which they seem to, they don't print Wasteland that you can cast a spell and get back into play in Wasteland a second time, then I feel like they should like look at this card a little more seriously.
Zach, I'm not saying that. Like, I know that you are off of this whole. They're calling it Rug Delver, but really it's just old Blue Red Delver as we knew it before EI. But what was really bad when EI was around? Thoughtseize. Maybe EI is the hero that you do want. Even though here's like as I do that like really sloppy segue. Grixis Delver is the other brethren of Scam, mm-hmm. right? Now, if you were to compare the Grixis Delver lists to the Canadian Rug Threshold lists that won, right? So it's just Blue Red Delver, Splashing, Questing Druid off of a single trop. Or you look at the Grixis lists, which are a 2 to 3 Underground Sea that deck that's splashing for Orcish Bowmasters, and then a couple of spare black cards here or there. The backbone of all those decks. Right, all those decks are 90% the same cards: Dragon Rage Channeler, Delver, Daze Wasteland, Cantrips, Force of Will. Lightning Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get that they are technically different decks, but are they? Are they really?
I mean, I don't think so.
You still Days Wasteland. I'm pulling this up because I remember when we were talking about how oh man, everybody's like the format is in a good place. It's in a good spot. But if there wasn't this facade of there's two different kinds of Delver decks, that the split is literally Orcish Bowmasters or Questing Druid, and that's the difference between them. If there was anything, like, there's still a bunch of Mishra's Baubles, like they're all on 3 Murktide regions. Like, the backbone of all of these decks, they're 95% the same cards. It's literally Orcish Bowmasters and Questing Druid. If that delineation wasn't there, right? If there wasn't, just because this one has Underground Sea and this one has a single Trop, would people be calling again for something for Delver to be hit? I don't know. I'm asking because I think that it's interesting that because there's this facade of difference, that suddenly nobody cares that, again, Delver crushed, right?
Yeah.
The same way that it crushed during Luris, the same way that it crushed during Ren 6 and DRC and Treasure Cruise and fucking Expressive Iteration.
I think
like, it's the same.
Just determined that this is the price of this format. Like, Delver is going to exist, and the play patterns are something that we've come to accept. And to argue, like, you know, should this deck be banned out of existence is kind of a moot point. It's not worth tackling. Specifically because
we should tackle it. We should tackle it, but I am going to just throw up on the docket, and then we're not going to tackle it.
No, I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying, like, that's going to send it down thought, you know.
Yeah, we're going to send it downfield, but we're not going to say necessarily that we should tackle it. But I'm also saying that maybe, just maybe, putting it out there, possibly for 2024, maybe we all need to take a good hard look at Days again. Maybe we should just all take a little bit of a harder look at Days once more, and not be self-abusers anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we should. Maybe we. I
don't disagree with you.
Go to therapy.
I don't disagree with you, and we'll have our unbanned ban episode at the beginning of the year for sure.
Are we? Wow,
you know,
we love that episode.
Yeah, I think coming off of that, so those are the decks that It was Rug Delver, Cascade, Boros Stompy. There we go, and Boros Stompy, Grixis, and Doomsday as well. So those were the decks that made the top 8, and I don't think that those decks. I think to a point, those decks are indicative of what you could see at a random F&M night. You know, what you might see at the North American EU. I wouldn't be surprised by any of these decks making it against the table versus you know.
I would say that even though there's a couple of copies in the top 32, and then, you know, a handful of more copies in the top 64, I think the deck that did the worst for its percentage of representation was any of the Beanstalk control lists.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
They showed up in good numbers, but 2 copies in the top 32 with some various. There's always going to be variations in those builds because there's variety in, like,
because there's 80 cards in them.
Well, some have 80, some have 60, but also like, you know, the pick and choosing of, like, what cards you want to help certain matchups or not certain matchups. Like, do you play Dress Down in the main against Urza Saga, or what number do you at all? Like, you know, what is the payoffs that you play? Like, do you play 2 Euro to 4 Euro? Do you play a Minskin Boo? Do you play the Ring at all? Like, are you on Yorion? Are you not on Yorion? Like, even though, like, the shell of them is still like, okay, we're, you know, a Source of Plowshares Euro deck, there is beyond that, like, the choices that you make are indicative of, like, what matchups you're going to be better suited against versus not, because you are the reactive deck for the most part.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are just like, fuck that altogether. We're just going to we're going to add black and also play Bowmasters and just have a proactive slant instead. And now we're like really mid-rangey as opposed to being on the control end. And so there's a lot of variety there. But that deck, for the percentage that it showed up, did worse, or it did not put up the same numbers that it would be indicative of how much it was represented. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't do as well, even though it still has, you know, 6 copies in the top 64.
Yeah.
So that's something to be mindful of. What that means to me is people are either, like, they are well prepared and have reps against how to beat those kinds of decks,
or Bowmasters is just good enough to bomb that deck out of existence.
or Bowmasters are good to bomb that deck out, or that that the deck is just the deck is still has enough variety in it that it can't consistently figure out everything. And in an event like this, where you take your second loss and you're out of top 8, that like that what the format right now presents, like the pillars of the format are too wide, like that you can't beat Urza Saga and beat Days Wasteland and beat Dark Ritual and beat the Mirror all at the same time consistently enough to not take at least 2 blemishes on your record, if not more, that knocks you out of the top spots. Because putting 6 copies in the top 64 in a 700 plus tournament is still pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a bad result. Like getting into the top 64, putting 2 copies in the top 32, like even though there's no copies in the top 16, like the difference between the top 16 is like maybe breakers, right? Like it's not like it's a bad performance.
Yeah.
It's not as good as you would expect for its representation, but it's not a bad performance. But I think that for people who are like me that are probably going to bring Beanstalk to EW, that like whatever it is, like really take into account like what the last tournament in Pittsburgh was, because it's in the same location, so you know that you're going to have locals showing up. So like there's likely going to be some inference of what the metagame will look like off of that. We can also see that in this kind of tournament that I think Lands and Stompy. Stompy is probably represented at equivalent amount online. Like you probably see a lot of initiative, and initiative does put up the numbers to show that it's like a top player and that you need to be able to respect it or have a plan for it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if online, if Lands is as represented as it is in paper, because if you have the deck Lands in paper, the Lands players that show up to these kinds of events playing Lands are dedicated Lands players.
Yeah.
You're not showing up, like nobody is just like randomly picked up their Mox Diamonds out of nowhere and been like, yeah, I'll figure Lands out. Like they've been playing for a long time. So if you go up against a Lands player, they're likely to be proficient. And if they have it in paper, they've been playing it for a long time and will know what they're doing, and they will have a plan.
Phil, are you saying only a fool would just pick up Mox Diamonds on a whim?
Yeah, who would do that? I mean, don't they know? Don't they know that cards that you would pair with that will get banned a day later
in formats no one plays?
Wouldn't they? Wouldn't anybody think of? Won't anybody think of the children?
Man.
Zach?
No one will think of the children.
No one will think of the children. Also, something else that I wanted to point out in your space, there was one 8-cast player in the top 32, and that's it.
Kind of low representation on 8-cast. I don't know how many 8-cast decks were in the 700, but I want to say it was a lower amount than you would think. And people know how to play against that deck now, so I think I might be off it. I think
I'm curious.
I'm looking around at other decks right now.
I'm curious if people figure that out, because in the top, there's no one thing that's very interesting to me about the top 8 here in Prague is there isn't a single Urza Saga in the top 8.
No, not true. The scam deck has 3.
Where are you looking?
Rakdos Scam, 3 Urza Sagas, Martin P. I was going to mention that too, but I did notice
Prague?
that.
Where is this?
This is Eternal Weekend 2023, Rakdos Scam, Martin P. 3 Urza Sagas.
Is this in, but not in Painter?
Not in Painter. This is Rakdos Scam.
Okay,
but it was a point I was going to make, and I realized that I would have been incorrect, just like you were. But to that point, 3 is a low number for a top 8.
I think that is indicative of, because like Painter had some in the top 16, but nothing
didn't break through. Yeah.
Also, I want to double check you, Zach. Are you looking at Legacy?
I am. I'm looking at Eternal Weekend, 9-1 main event. Maybe this wasn't in the top 8. I'm looking at Joe Dyer's article on what's it called. So I'm assuming that this is from the top 8, but I might be wrong. But Martin P at 6th place, Rakdos Scam. Yeah, that is the deck.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I wonder if people were over prepared for Urza Saga in the event as a whole.
I think so,
because I'm still of the opinion that Urza Saga is objectively and stupidly broken.
I agree.
if you're really, really, really trying to target it, you definitely can. And I'm that was one of the things that I was surprised by from the after like seeing all the results from Prague is how few Urza Saga there were at the top tables. It's obviously it was still there, but not in the numbers that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to the Beanstalk. I thought there was going to be more Beanstalks too, and there weren't.
Yeah.
Like the things that actually got to the top, like showed up and did well in the top 8 were Days Wasteland and Dark Ritual.
Well, I think those are important.
And Ancient Tomb in specifically Initiative rather than Artifacts.
That's an important revelation, though. This is what we learn when we look at these events after the fact. Is like what you thought. What's implied versus what's reality. What you think is actually going to be there versus what actually happens is, that's one of the beauties of having this event first, so that we can use it to decide, how we want to build our decks for Pittsburgh.
What would you think is like? What would you consider any differences between Europe and America in terms of what are more common decks? Like,
I think about lands as being a much more European deck, and I couldn't pinpoint why that is, but I feel like there are more Italian Legends packs out there, I suppose. But lands is a deck that I expect when I see a European big tournament that I would expect to see in big numbers, not necessarily doing great, but definitely appearing in like the top 32, in some number.
Was the lack of Beseech the Mirror anything that surprised you here?
No, I think people are still trying to figure that deck out, and Storm's just not been super great. So I think it's a risky proposition to have your, like, everyone knows to counter that spell, and it's very bad against Days. Like, oh, okay, I'll just create 4 mana, and I guess I'll sacrifice this artifact that I have, that could be a resource for me, and I'll cast this 4-drop, and you're just playing directly into a Daze or a Force of Will. Like, and it's a known must counter spell. Like, it's not like, oh, I'll just let them go get, whatever it is, and then I'll counter that, or like I have an answer for that. Like, your opponent's going to try to end the game with Beseech the Mirror. They've probably been telegraphing and setting it up, So it's not tough to prepare for it and then be ready for it,
Are you surprised that from when Beseech came out, and in literally the first event after it came out, it won with Mono Black Helm, and Mono Black Helm is nowhere.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, man. Those 2-card Monty decks for Legacy are, in my opinion, more of a meme, and they do good in the early weeks. They're a lot like me at a Grand Prix. The first week of a format, I am fire. Specifically in Limited, I'm really good because I've been playing a lot of Arena and stuff, and I really understand everything, and I've got it going on. I totally understand what to do. And then, like, 2 weeks later, when everybody catches up, they're just like, you know what? Like, we know your tricks. We know what you're trying to do. Everybody has this information now. There's no edge, The edge for that deck was that it was an unknown.
I guess so. I guess that has to be it. I mean, the first Mono Black deck that you get to is in 34th place, and it's like Mono Black. It has like all the cards from Mono Black Helm, except to cut the Helms and cut the Beseeches, and is just playing like this mid-range deck with like a bunch of discard.
So it's not even the Tony Scapone special, huh?
It's not. No, it's not.
Mono Black Storm.
It is 10 Swamp, 4 Wasteland. There is no Urza Saga. It is like 4 Thoughtseize. It still has like the Reanimate, Trogle of Khazad-dûm, Grief package.
Sure,
like,
why
it's
not?
essentially Mono Black Scam is like really where it's at. But it's on Dauthi Voidwalker, 4 Opposition Agent, 4 Orcish Bowmaster, so just all of the black hate creatures.
Hate.
But
yeah.
But it is on, and then 4 Plague Engineer and 4 Surgical Extraction in the board, 3 Torok Dreadcanter. There is no combo to be found here unless you consider Troll of Khazad-dûm cycling itself and getting reanimated, a 2-card Monty.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this deck is it is not anything like the combo 2-card Monty deck of old. And otherwise, beyond that, like, there is no mono, like, there is just no Helm anywhere in the top 50. Shout out to our friend Fenris Cloud, who got 48th on Banned Infect.
Heck yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the lone Infect player around.
Yeah, man.
Also, Cephalid Breakfast. Take the over. I'll give you over under on top 40.
Top 40. 2.
Was there a breakfast pilot in 40th or better?
Yes, there was one pilot.
No, there was not.
I mean, you're asking this question. I should know that the answer is no.
Yeah. You can tell that I'm not.
Was he 34th?
In the process.
The 40th is such a weird number for you to ask me too.
I will say that in 25th place there was a 4x Beseech Storm combo deck. So that is the only one. It came in 25th. It was playing a hero on the board to pitch to Force of Vigors.
Okay.
In the after, which is cool. But the first breakfast deck at Prague was in 51st place. Otherwise, I mean, if you were to go all the way down through like the top 75, top 100 decks here, I mean, it is just dictated by Days Wasteland.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not surprised. I mean, it is the best deck in the format. It's certainly the most represented. We knew that. You look. You always have to have a good Delver matchup, or what are you even doing?
Okay, Zach, give me a number. When do you think the first Mono Black Helm deck actually does show up? What place? What's the highest placing for Mono Black Helm that is actually playing Leyline of the Void in the main, Helm of Obedience in the main? What number does it show up at?
86.
That's actually not a bad guess. In 73rd place.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 76th place. 76th place, there was a pilot who went 7-3.
All right. Phil, this is interesting, but actually what I'm kind of more interested in, I think will give us a better idea. It'll be interesting, actually, if it does give us a better idea, is the Buffalo Chicken Dip, because it takes place in the U.S., right? But it is a proxy tournament. So you have those two, like, weird, like, one's in Europe, so who knows, if that translates over to the U.S. And then we have one in the U.S. It's a pretty big event. But because it's a proxy-friendly tournament, and obviously Eternal Weekend is not proxy-friendly, which one of these will be the closer to the other? Like, that's what I'm kind of wondering. Which one will be more indicative of what Legacy looks like in America?
I still think it will be closer to EW.
Yeah.
Only because it's specifically not a proxy event, but it's also one of the biggest Legacy events of the year that people take a lot of time to prepare for. I would imagine that it will be more so of the players who have the cards, who are experienced with those cards.
Yeah, I mean, the Buffalo, not to smush on Buffalo Chicken Dip, but 49 players versus 900 players, 700 players?
It was 700 plus players. I mean, but that's also just I mean, I think if you were to zoom in, I would imagine that it might be similar, but you might have the larger the sample size becomes, right? The more that you sift down the top decks further and further and further.
Yeah.
So if you were to do a smaller tournament at Buffalo Chicken Dip, I would expect there to be probably more
outliers,
if
right?
anything, not just more outliers. I guess so. I would expect there to be more variety, right? I would expect the format at a smaller sample size to look healthier, whereas at a larger sample size, I think we get what we're seeing with these results, which is even though there's a smattering of decks throughout, it's pretty much dominated between blue, red, splash, green Delver and Grixis Delver, and those two decks are 95% the same cards, and they have that deck is the one that shell is really what dictated this one. So if anybody is like me and they're looking at these results and going, okay, what do I have to skew towards? I would be thinking, okay, I really need to ensure that my Delver matchup on the draw, in the worst possible circumstance, I have to assume that I still have a game against them. I'm going to have to take a game on the draw against them, right? At some point across an event, because at these numbers on a really large event of 11-ish rounds, I would expect that you have the odds of you're going to run into those Delver variants 3 times?
Three sounds about correct, yeah.
right? On average, every player is going to run into Delver 3 times, and by Delver I mean Days Wasteland. So it's like because not only are you going to run into Grixis Delver versus Days Wasteland, you're going to run into now Rug Delver, which has a win, so people are going to be looking at that more seriously as a deck to play. That's Days Wasteland. Rakdos Scam is Days Wasteland. Like you are going to run up against the shell of Days Wasteland the majority of your matchups, right? On average, like if you're like I'm going to have an even spread, you're going to be playing against Days Wasteland more than any other shell, given the look of this event. So if you don't have a good, like, solid plan, specifically like what is my exact plan main board on the play and the draw? What's my plan post board on the play and the draw? And your mapping of that sideboard against exactly the Days Wasteland decks and the variety within them. Like you have to have a plan for each one, because even though they're going to cheese you on Days Wasteland, but like the way that you have to combat Scam is not necessarily the same that you combat Rug, right? Or Blue Red, because Scam doesn't have Delvers, right? So like as an example, if I'm a Bant Beanstalk player and I have my Prismatic Endings, Prismatic Ending is fine against Blue Red and Grixis because I need some amount of density at 1-drop removal spells to deal with fast multiple threat openings between DRC and Delver.
Yeah.
But I don't want Prismatic Endings against Scam, because the cheapest threat they have is Orcus Bowmaster, and that thing has already done, all the damage that it's going to do and left a body behind that I don't want to trade 2 mana for.
Correct.
Right? So it's like, okay, against Scam, I'm boarding out my Prismatic Endings, but I'm leaving them in against Grixis. Like, you got to have the plan against both, even though both have the same option of being able to Days Wasteland cheese you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the more we talk about, the more I think playing a deck like Maverick might be the smart move.
It's
right?
possible that it's possible that like this might position those decks a little bit better. Like if you are the like mid-range stuff that Bolt is good against.
Yeah.
Like that's not particularly if you have a way to close the door. Like there isn't that much Naya Depths anywhere, but I don't know if that's because it didn't do well or if because it wasn't represented, because it's nowhere in the top 25. I think the first one was an Abzan Depths deck. I'm looking for it right now because I do recall seeing Depths somewhere at the higher end.
Control F.
Yeah, it's probably Control F for Depths. All right, let's see. Yeah, Depths in 17th place, and it was just green. It was. Well, let me double check. They say they list it as green-white, but I'm going to make sure that it actually is. Yeah, 4 Savannah, and that's it. Yeah, and it's very classic Depths. Although it is playing 4 Legolas's Quick Reflexes.
Sick.
Which, I mean, Legolas's Quick Reflexes is kind of cool when you have like, okay, I'll tap my Reclaimer, kill your guy, get a land, and then you have same thing with Knight of the Reliquary, and then it also is you can slow roll your. Like, Depth is not turbo depths, right? Like, usually you get in positions where when you go for it, you could go for it, but knowing that when you do go for it, if you just played around the wasteland, that once the Merit Lage hits the table, you know that it is going to be protected.
Yeah.
Because the Legolas's Quick Reflexes, is going to stop whatever they have on the back end.
Yeah.
So you have a way more protected kill in that regard. I mean, honestly, like, it might be a coming out party for Selesnya Depths in Pittsburgh. I will say, though, one thing that I'm noticing here is that it is a 61-card main board, is what I'm seeing here. 61-card main board, Zach. 3 Mox Diamond, 2 Sylvan Library, 61 cards. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about 61 cards in your 4 Legolas's Quick Reflexes, 4 Swords to Plowshares, 3 Mox Diamond, 2 Sylvan Library deck?
Only Zach. In Goblins, bro. Only in Goblins.
How do you feel about it? Dude,
mostly because I just don't respect Goblins players to begin with. So if you want to play 61 cards, you're really not dropping any in my in my eyes.
I'm trying. We just had our whole Thanksgiving thankful opening.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try and turn over a leaf here because a younger Phil, a past Force of Phil would have been like 61 cards. This is blasphemous. This is a joke.
I'm thinking about sleeving up three ponders.
How do we take any of this seriously? Literally cut a card at random, right? I get that the deck is 4 Elvish Reclaimer, 4 Knight of the Reliquary, 4 Green Sunzenith, 4 Crop Rotation.
Just cut a Knight.
I understand you are 16 tutors for your combo, but new Phil is going to look at this in a whole new light. Okay, Zach, you are tasked with having to build the 61 card special. How do you get yourself mentally to a place to do so? How do you come around? How do you go?
The
You know what
answer
I
is
need?
simple.
I need.
It's the same. It's the exact same reason that Anurag plays Yorion Beanstalk, is because there's just too many good options, and you just want to play all the cards. That is the correct answer. That's the answer. That is how you arrive at this spot. There are too many good cards, and you just don't want to be forced to make a decision. So you play 61 or 80 cards.
In your mind, you're like, there's no way I'm cutting the third Yavimaya to get down to 60. There's just, I can't do it.
Yeah, that is like, in my mind. That's how. Like, dude, I would consistently play 100+ cards in my EDH decks if that was legal in that format. It's just not.
Bro, I mean, it looks like you can start a whole new community format here of 101 Dalmatians, the format.
101 automations.
101 Grand Calcutrons. You can have it. All right, Zach. I think that, like, the thing that we have learned from this layout is, if you are not prepared to deal with Days Wasteland, you will not win EW. If you are not prepared for the initiative to enter the game, you will not win EW. If you do not have a plan for lands in general between 12 Posts and Urza Saga and Depths, you will not win EW. If you were going to skimp anywhere, it seems as though Painter and 8cast had arguably the worst weekend they've had since Urza Saga came out at a major Legacy event.
Yep.
So if that's indicative, if you were playing your third meltdown,
take out your meltdowns, boys.
Maybe you just save yourself some space there. Also, whatever respect you had for Beseech, maybe you don't need to respect Beseech as much.
You can probably just play Beseech, the same cards you were playing against Storm and do just fine against that deck. That's the problem with Beseech, is that, like, you can beat it with Flusterstorm and all the other cards that you probably had in your sideboard anyhow.
Dude, of all of the cards that came out that, like, shook up the format from the last couple of sets between Lord of the Rings and Eldraine, the one that got them a lot of hype, Beseech got so much hype out the gate, and rightly so. It then won the first major tournament it was legal in, right out the gates. Just
one of our better videos this year was me talking about Beseech the Mirror, for like 8 minutes straight.
And validating all of that. And now it's just like, okay, either people have figured that out, or there is not enough representation for that to matter. Like, I was advocating for ways to move over to, like, you have to be able to combat Dark Ritual Beseech and 5-color, and then figure out, like, the Days Wasteland in the middle. Like that, we had a whole episode where I ranted about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, and in the context of when we came out with that episode, I stand by everything that I said. And I was like, I'm playing 2 fucking Mind Break Trap on top of all the blue shit, because Beseech just condenses how many resources they need to kill you to so much fewer than what they used to. And that's still true. But if Beseech isn't going to show up, okay, well, you need more space to deal with what apparently is going to be a lot of Days Wasteland. Yeah. And if you are not prepared, and if you got to find some space, so maybe this is the home. Maybe this is where it's at. Maybe the real result of this is Days Wasteland is, as always and forever, the head honcho of the format, and you need a plan. 8cast, you may not need to respect as much. Beseech the Mirror, you may not need to be respect as much, but you sure as hell need to be able to respect Orcish Bowmasters, and you sure as hell need to be respecting Grief, because Grief showed up in Rakdos Scam, Dimir Scam, Mono Black Scam, like the Reanimate Troll package. If you don't, if somebody can thought seize your threat and reanimate it against you and kill you with it, consider that. And then, be able to deal with the initiative entering the game.
Yeah. My final thought is, do I need to do a video on the new staple of the format, Seek the Beast / Questing Druid? Comment below. Like you do, Zach. Comment below.
And as our resident Rug Delver player, I think that only you can speak to why this, the same way that I irk at the 4-color control decks as being garbage piles that I hate, and I want the elegance of miracles.
Yeah.
You get to do the same with Seek the Beast, and how you
it
long
feels
for,
very much like the same vibe. Yeah.
You long for your Nimble Mongooses, Zach, and instead you just got this red card parading as a green card.
Yep. All right. Well, again, everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you again to all of our patrons, the Durdle Maniacs. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that either in a link below that says join. You can go to patreon.com/Eternal Durdles. You can just support the cast by using Moxfield. Yeah, that's it for us this week. Thanks for watching, and catch you then. Here is a playlist of our interviews. You can check those out. They're excellent, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to meet a lot of the great people that help this community grow. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great one. Bye.